Hello Carpologists, I'm Luke, and today we are looking at this amazing bit of kit. It's a super lightweight, super stable and super versatile stainless steel pod, and it is known as the Inox Pod from Carp Spirit. Since Carp Spirit entered the UK earlier this year, they've made quite a big impression. The Inox range of buzz bars and bankware has been massively popular, so naturally the Inox Pod has followed. Now, whilst we're on the subject of Inox, it is actually French for stainless steel. So for any of you iPhone generation out there, it is not Inox, it's Inox. One of the first things you'll notice about the Inox Pod is that it comes in this handy carry case. Now this is actually split into two sections with a central divider. When you open up the case itself, you get your buzz bars on one section, and on the other section you get the pod itself. In the middle there is also a handy 2-in-1 key, which is just underneath a little popper, and we'll come on to that in a little bit to show you exactly what that's used for. So just before setting up the pod, it's probably worth showing just how compact it actually is. So as you can see, it is completely flat, so if for whatever reason you didn't want to use the carry case supplied, then it's easy to store into a bag, a carry-all. It can simply just sit on top of everything and take up next to no room at all. Now I promise you in a second I will actually show you how to set up the pod, but with a pod like this, obviously it is packed full of features. So before we set it up, there is one more feature to show you. Obviously the versatility of a pod is massively important, and that's why a lot of you guys end up choosing a pod over bank sticks. But to make it even more versatile, with this pod it is the best of both worlds. All four of these bank sticks simply unscrew, so you can actually use them as just bank sticks, obviously with your buzz bars if you want to, and then you've got the pod as a backup if you want to move swim and move from somewhere you can actually get your bank sticks in to a landing stage. You've got everything you need with you. Now, as you'd expect, setting up the pod is nice and simple. With the four legs, it's simply a case of screwing them into place to create a bit of a diamond shape. So once they're screwed in, you can move on to the next stage. So, like you see, you've got your diamond shape there. Now, this is where the clever stuff comes in. The Inox Pod actually has something called a Dutch pin design, which is completely different to any other pods out there on the market, and it's really nice and simple to use. However, it keeps the pod as stable as possible. Now, to use it, it is simply a case of pulling the leg towards the body, and that gives you flexibility. Now, it actually has three different settings, so you can set it to 90 degrees like so, you can set it to 45 degrees, or you can set it to 22.5 degrees. Now, all four legs have the same option, so it's a completely versatile pod. If you want your rods up, or your rod tips up in the air because you're fishing over weed or anything like that, then you can set the front legs to 90 degrees and have the rear legs at 22.5 degrees to give you that nice slant. If you want to set them all completely level, obviously you've got the three different options. You can have it at 22.5, you can have it at 45 or 90 degrees. Now, once you've got the four legs locked into position, as you can see here, I've gone for the 22.5 degrees. That's nice and stealthy, nice and low to the ground, keeps it as minimal as possible. We move on to the uprights. So obviously you've got four uprights, and just like the legs, they also feature the Dutch pin design. So it's simply a case of pushing the upright towards the leg, and then you can set it. So you know every time it is completely straight, so you're going to get your rods level with no problems at all. So once you've got your uprights in place, it should look a little bit like this. Now, it's simply a case of putting your buzz bars on, but as we all know, Carp Spirit likes to think outside the box. As you can see on the uprights, it has a little groove on each one of them. This means that the buzz bars simply slot into place like so. So no screwing in like a standard pod would be. As you can see, it offers loads of flexibility. So this is ideal if you're fishing with your tips up in the air or your tips down, then you can angle your buzz bars accordingly. And then this is where your little 2-in-1 key comes in. On the back of the upright itself, there are little thumb screws, and these are actually a no-loss design, so you haven't got to worry about them being unscrewed, losing them, dropping them down into the water, anything like that. They will stay in place. One side of your 2-in-1 key has a little triangle fitment, so you can screw in your buzz bar. So then once you've screwed it into the angle that you want it to, there is no movement there whatsoever, and it makes the pod as solid as possible. Obviously, get your front ones on as well, so then, like I say, you can get them to the right angle that you want, depending if you're fishing with your tips up, down, or completely straight, like I've got it set up now. That's it. Well, not quite. As you can see, when you take one of your either buttrests or bite alarms off, there is a little capsule underneath. So again, Carp Spirit thinking outside the box. Is not a case of screwing them in place and having to faff about trying to get them completely level. It comes with this capsule, and that's where the second side of the 2-in-1 key comes in. So you can tighten it up onto your buttrest, slot it into the little groove that's been cut out, and just tighten it down. So it makes it nice and easy to get everything completely straight and as solid as possible. What more could you want from a pod? So we touched upon versatility when we talked about the Dutch pin design. And obviously it is a massive edge being able to change the angle of the legs and have 3 different angles. It copes with most situations. However, that is far from the only versatility that this pod can offer. Obviously, front and rear buzz bars can be adjusted up and down, and these are adjusted simply by the no loss thumb screws again, which can then be tightened further with the 2-in-1 key. So that's your buzz bars covered. The legs, obviously being actual bank sticks, are completely versatile as well, so you can change the length of them, and then you can actually change the length of the pod itself. So if it is really windy conditions and you need that bit more stability, by lengthening out the pod, it is just going to make it even more stable. It's not going anywhere. And that brings us onto the weight of the pod. Obviously a stainless steel pod, you'd expect it to be quite weighty, but this really isn't, and that's for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's made from the same Series 300 premium stainless steel as the rest of the Inox range, but it's also thanks to its hollow tubed inserts. Basically, it means it's a nice lightweight stainless steel pod that is super stable, super versatile, and super lightweight. So obviously this is a feature-packed pod, and it's pretty clear that it's one of Carp Spirit's flagship products. But what can you expect to pay for a pod like this? Well, as a complete setup like this, obviously without the bite alarms and the buttrests, it is $349.99, and that also includes the carry case and the 2-in-1 key. If you don't want to be using the fixed 3-rod buzz bars, you can buy the pod base only for $299.99 and then buy your buzz bars separately. So if you want, say, 2 or 3 rods adjustable buzz bars, then you can buy them as an addition to the base of the pod. Now, for a pod as feature packed as this, that is pretty good value for money. Can't really fault it at all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon.